So that said, I think we will all be enlightened to hear your views, Dr. Nkudu, in this interplay between pollution, especially organic pollution, plastic pollution, and the opportunities that lie within in trade. The microphone is yours.
So much. Good afternoon, everybody. How are you today? Are you having a sustainable afternoon? Okay, that's good to hear. So thank you very much for everybody taking your time to be here this afternoon and for welcoming me and the other guests that you have had come over this afternoon. Much appreciation to our hosts today, the Africa Legal Network. Much appreciation to Carlota Dalago and your teams and the lawyers that are here. Also much appreciation to UNCTAD and colleagues or former colleagues from the United Nations system. And it's always great, finding great opportunities to meet and talk. I also do take cognizance of the fact that we have members of parliament from the East African Legislative Assembly that drives a lot of the policy work as we know it. One of the most fundamental pieces of legislation that have passed before is the East African Customs Management Act, which is an extremely profound act because it is one that regulates how we manage our customs procedures and including customs policy. So I think that just goes to show that the East African legislative process does lead up to very practical and fundamental issues in their ordinary line of work. So my name is Alfred Kombudo. I'm Principal Secretary for Trade. First and foremost, my apologies. I expected to be here at 2 o'clock, but I had to attend to something that could not be left, and therefore I'm here a bit late. So I ask for your indulgence for the adjustments that you may have had to make insofar as the program is concerned. I'm glad to be invited on this occasion on discussing how trade can contribute to realizing the value in organic discharges. First and foremost, maybe I could just give you a very quick reflection on some of the things that we are doing at the ministry that touch a lot on the discussion here today. One of the things that we are concerned about is to make sure that trade and investment is accelerated, and we are living in a global context. And some of the things that we are realizing is that some of these subjects concerning sustainability, concerning labor, and concerning the duty of care that you have to have as you produce things, whether they are goods or services, increasingly are becoming mainstream. And they're becoming mainstream because consumers are demanding it. They want to be able to trace where the products are coming from. They want products that are ethically produced. They want products that maintain a strong level of conservation. They want to make sure that the energy sources that you're using are basically clean sources, so much so that consumers are willing to also pay a premium for these goods and services. But at the same time, we also owe a duty of care to our environment to ensure that when we go out to produce things, we do so in a way that does not harm the environment. And there are 2 or 3 trade agreements that we've recently gotten into where for the first time, trade for sustainable development or sustainable measures are actually becoming a core part of trade agreements. I'll give you an example. We recently signed economic partnership agreement between Kenya and the European Union, which basically provides access to a 27-country, 13 trillion euro market. And for the first time, we had an enforceable chapter called Trade for Sustainable Development that commits both parties to exercise a higher duty of care towards the environment in matters of trade and investment. So these matters that we're discussing today are not good to have, but they are must have if you're going to interact with the international trading environment. We are also having a conversation right now with the United States to have a strategic trade and investment partnership that basically seeks to harmonize the way we approach key issues of trade. And one of the key chapters that we are actually negotiating is trade and environment. And within that, we are actually coming to a common view on what does it mean for goods to be produced, services to be produced, and how can we ensure that that is done sustainably. And so that is just a small preview of the fact that what you're discussing here today is actually a core trade issue to our export performance. And if I go further into that, we do realize that organic waste that's originating from various sources, it could be from the household, it could be from manufacturing activities, it constitutes a sizable portion of waste streams that actually are coming into our environment. And oftentimes, these effluents lead to environmental pollution, they find themselves into water streams, and it also affects human health. And sometimes we also forget animal health, isn't it? Because animals, for example, are eating plastics, they are being affected in the oceans, for example, for the turtles, and so on and so forth. So on the animal side, it's also a key issue that we have to address. So the mixing of plastic waste with the organic residues also means that the process of separation becomes very difficult. Where you do not have systems whereby labeling is properly done and the discharges can be separated as close as possible from where the waste becomes waste, then the cost of basically separating it becomes extremely high. And I think we've been able to see that, and that then deters our ability to convert waste into economic products. So the mixing makes it a bit more difficult, and it also results into the contamination of organic residues. So this means that plastics, for example, also the microplastics that you spoke about, they end up in the organic value chain, and they basically lead to more serious problems if they find their way there. And that is why it is our view that it is extremely important to regulate plastics, especially biodegradables and compostables, as business as usual in this market can lead to more complicated upcycling efforts. There are several sectors globally where this issue is becoming very prominent. We are basically seeing that there are opportunities in the energy sector. We are basically seeing that in the textile and apparel sector, the issue of recycling becomes extremely important in the food sector and so on and so forth. So it is very important for us to have good standards, great awareness for biodegradation and compostability. And that's why I'm actually very happy to hear that the East African Legislative Assembly has taken up measures to do with the single-use plastics, and that is also something which I was glad to maybe catch the tail end of the conversation as being explained, I guess, by the lawyers from Africa Legal Network. So I'm actually happy to hear that East Africa is a leader when it comes to waste management. A few years ago, I was confronted with a problem that I did not expect. I am usually monitoring trade barriers within East Africa, whether it is in the meat sector, whether it is us exporting our tea, and there's some blockages put there. But one thing that showed up in the regional monitoring mechanism of the EAC was quite interesting. Rwanda was sending glasses to Dar es Salaam, broken glasses, for recycling. I think by that time they did not have a recycling plant. I'm not so sure whether there's one there now. But so there was a problem at the border in as far as classifying and creating easy procedures for trade in that product. Because a customs officer would think that this is a broken glass, how would I classify it? But this was a raw material for a glass recycling plant in Dar es Salaam. And then I thought about it and asked myself, but how far are the two places? it's quite far. But the economics meant that there was a market for recycling that product. There was a willing buyer, and it made sense to transport it that far. Of course, I thought about it in the context of opportunities that maybe the western part of Kenya could get in that kind of business and so on and so forth. But I think the point I'm making here also touches on the area of regional value chains in the area of upcycling and looking at waste as a raw material and ensuring that then we're able to prepare it properly and be able to trade in it. So as the region is considering the regional plastic policy harmonization in the form of the draft single-use plastic bill, it basically gives us some excitement to see that then we'll be able to create more trade and to have more raw material that drives industries that are actually going to be dependent on this. And hopefully the upstream effect will be very good. We probably will have separation at the earlier stages of the value chain such that then we'll be able to have the raw materials as we need it. So like I said at the beginning of this conversation, trade can play a crucial role to mitigate pollution from organic residues, but also derive value from it, given the examples that I've just shared. A few things that we should have in mind. In many of the trade agreements that we are actually negotiating right now, we do realize that several partners are very keen on the issue of traceability. You should be able to speak about the product that you're creating in a way that makes sense for the buyer, in a way that makes sense for the consumer. So in addition to taking the measures that we need to take in as far as making the value chain for the waste products viable, we also need to invest in a system of traceability, in a system of labeling, in a system of packaging, and in a system that sends information to buyers and consumers that the product is ethically made. It is made from materials that have been recycled, and you will also be able to get a big premium from being able to do so. So we look forward to Kenya and the wider East African community benefiting from this and future innovations, and we look forward to this also being able to help us get through with more trade in this area. Of course, for trade to happen, you need to ensure that regulatory barriers are removed. You need to ensure that customs authorities have the same understanding of waste as a raw product. You need to have the infrastructure that can be able to separate and also to maintain the raw material in a form that can be utilized, and so on and so forth. And it will be our interest as the State Department of Trade to work with people in this particular area so that then we can consistently identify these and basically make sure that we do it properly. Thank you very much. I think I'd like to leave my address there. A lot of time has gone by, and I really look forward to being able to engage with you as we continue with this process. Have a good afternoon.